Today we are talking about a topic near and dear to my heart. That is another micro habit, a little change people can make consistently that doesn't get rid of all the food they love, but does it in a way where it provides a lot more benefits for their body and their goals. And that is the order of eating or the plate method or food sequencing, whatever you want to call it. And we're going to get into the weeds about this because it's something we talk about a lot.
I always thought the plate method, isn't that like my hand is this big and like I'm supposed to eat
like a fist of
like
this.
this and like 2 handfuls of veggies.
I guess you could call the plate method. Yeah, like the My Plate almost like, half of it is vegetables. So it's more of order of eating, food sequencing, and why it makes a huge difference to order foods in a specific way. Now, this doesn't always work well with like a combination meal, right? Like a dump meal or a big casserole or certain meals like that. But if you eat kind of like we do, more plainly, or, your meat, your vegetable, your starch, if you have one, or your salad, your cruciferous vegetable, your fish, your beans, you can, even in bowl type meals, you can do this if you're layering and you can pick around it. Have you ever known anyone that eats one thing at a time, like fully? You know how some people are like that?
I definitely used to be like that.
Oh, when you were a kid?
Yeah, just I like things kind of separated, not blending together. And then, just eat up one thing and then eat the next thing. And then later on, I think I still kind of do that a lot where I like to save something, kind of for the end.
Yeah.
But
well, I do. I love saving, like if we have like a chickpea mac and cheese or something, I do love saving that for the end because I'm like, ooh, this is.
And I know, I also kind of know that I'll maybe just like house it if I start with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's exactly why this order of eating works. So if we have something even more indulgent or something that doesn't align with our goals to have all the time, like
chips,
different things.
Chips.
Yeah. You might want to save those for the end. So, but I was just thinking about the people that eat one thing at a time. I know some adults are like that, and it could be beneficial if you're doing it in the right order. But we want to think about our stomach as a funnel. And so we're going to refer to that today. Like if you think about, it is kind of like this. It's like a sack, kind of like a, sack. It's a funnel. But how we layer foods and how we order, the types of ways we eat at a meal can make a huge difference, even if we're not measuring, or even if we're not counting calories, or even if we are eating things that we don't always, or we shouldn't always eat. So you want to think about how you're eating at meals. And I think this is super important. Like you said, like if you're having chips or, dessert even, or bread or something like that, saving that for the end, number one, is huge for weight loss or weight maintenance. Like, because if you eat a bunch of bread.
I'm just thinking of Granddad right now who like gets ice cream to start the meal. He's like,
I'm
going to have dessert to start.
Wow.
Like he starts with ice cream.
Then how can anything taste good after?
I don't know.
So that's the thing too. Like for weight loss, if you have goals, one reason it's helpful. Yeah. If you have goals, I have to eat more protein. I got to get more vegetables in. You really want to try to eat that stuff first, because ultimately if you start, this is what I always tell my clients, like if it's a Thanksgiving buffet out of family members and you put the mac and cheese and the mashed potatoes and the rolls and all that stuff on your plate and it looks so good. If you start with that and get that taste in your mouth, how are you going to want to go to the green beans next, or the salad, or the dry turkey, or the, that's one thing.
Right.
The taste buds, your taste buds are not going to want to go. So like eating dessert at the beginning, how could you want to go back to your vegetable, your broccoli?
You know what's funny is like, since you're bringing this up, I'm thinking back to my time at Sullivan's, which I'll tell y'all, I have a reoccurring nightmare. It happens.
Which is a steakhouse here that's still open.
Steakhouse that's here. My reoccurring nightmare is that I'm back waiting tables at Sullivan's. And sometimes I'm actually like having fun in my dream, but...
Didn't you have one the other night?
Yeah.
Again?
Yeah, I did. And I was, in my dream, I was explaining to my coworkers that I also was a business owner, but I was just kind of doing this on the side. And I was like, man, I must look like a really unsuccessful business owner in my dream. I'm like,
just doing it because it's fun.
I'm just doing this because it's fun.
Make a little cash.
My reoccurring like nightmare is that I go to the back and then I come back to the table and I don't have the item that I was supposed to bring. And then I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot it. It's right in the back. I'll go back and get it. I go to the back, come back out. I still don't have it. And it's just the like growing, increasing look of disappointment on my on my customer's face, and like my frustration with like not bringing it. And it happens all the time. But thinking back to Sullivan's, they used to have this like knockout martini that they wanted every table to start with. And it was pineapple juice mixed with vodka. It was really good. It was like infused for whatever length of time. But what they would always say is that starting them off with that would make them eat more.
Oh yeah.
Like they would order more. And it, now that we know a little bit more about blood sugar and metabolism, I'm guessing that blood sugar spikes up super fast, insulin comes, drops it down super quick, and like right then, here I come ready to take your order, and you're ordering the whole menu.
Well, I think there's a couple of things going on. I think the sweetness probably too gives like a dopamine hit from that sugar rush. And then you're like, ooh, I want more. Like I want another dopamine rush because you can sip that drink back pretty fast if it's sweet. And then you're going to eat more bread probably. Let's talk about the bread coming out of these restaurants.
Yeah.
So you might have the drink, then you might eat the bread. And both of those things, are spiking your blood sugar and then dropping. Because usually it's not like a whole wheat, crusty, high fiber bread. Like usually it's like a white loaf,
like a white loaf.
Did you house that stuff when you worked there?
I mean,
I'm sure, right?
Yes, we had lots of bread, lots of little bread rolls. I don't know how, like I was younger when I was there.
Yeah. I did too when I worked at an Italian restaurant.
I didn't have any money, so I just like went there and ate my meal. Yeah.
I did, same thing when I worked at the Italian restaurant. In college and undergrad, the rolls, like I remember just eating those rolls. Like
I was more skinny fat then, probably.
Yeah. Weren't quite as muscular, but so you think about restaurants. Let's talk about restaurants. They bring out the bread. There's a purpose to that. They want you to spend more. They want you to order more drinks. Oh, I'm eating this bread. Ooh, and now I want some red wine. Or now I want some white wine while I'm enjoying this. Ooh, I'm having this butter, this super savory butter with it. If they have that. And so it's, the blood sugar response that's probably part of it. And then the dopamine, and then it just leaves you, open for more choices. Like, ooh, let me just have all this stuff.
Because you start digesting bread almost like right away, right?
Yeah.
How does that work?
So if you think about like a piece of white bread, almost, I compare it to like cotton candy. I know it's not quite as airy as that, but if a white piece of bread has a super high, like 100 glycemic index. So the GI glycemic index that we talk about is how quickly your blood sugar rises, how fast it rises. And so white bread is about 100. So if you tear off a piece and let that sit on your tongue, it will start to digest kind of like break down on your tongue, kind of like cotton candy. Not that extreme, but it does. Same thing with a potato chip. So think about potato chips.
What's doing that?
So it's breaking down into glucose very quickly. And there's in our salivary, there's salivary amylases in our saliva. Okay. So that's what's really starting that. There's amylases, which are they're enzymes that break down amylose, which is, carbohydrate. It's in the bread and the potato chips. It's a type of carbohydrate. So that's starting to break down part of that chip, part of that bread, even in our tongue and in our mouth. Mm-hmm. And so that's in the saliva, the enzyme's starting to break it down. That makes it get easier and easier to digest once it gets to the stomach and once it gets down to the small intestine. The small intestine is where most things are absorbed, but things are starting to be broken down before it gets there. And our carbohydrates, we know, are absorbed the quickest. Part of that is for that reason. It starts in the mouth and down the esophagus, even before it gets to the small intestine. And so that's what accounts for that blood sugar rise quicker than other macronutrients. We know protein and fat are a lot slower, take a lot more time. So we got that big spike and then the drop. So it's getting into your bloodstream pretty quickly. But like, that's also the reason why you can eat a bunch of white bread or you can eat a whole bag of potato chips probably in one sitting and not really get full because it's like being broken down, going out into the bloodstream.
I just want more potato chips if I try to eat a bag of potato chips.
I mean, that's why we don't keep those in the house. Yeah. Like it literally dissolves. I tell clients like it is literally dissolving in your mouth. And that's why you never feel full. And it's addictive because the salt and because the little dopamine hit and it's being processed very quickly.
So if we were to grade you on sequencing, starting with the carbs, starting with bread and chips and all that, that gets an F.
That would be an F.
Okay.
So what you don't want to do is that, right? Like as much as possible. And that's pretty easy to do because if you have bread, if you have potatoes, maybe you have those at the end. Rice, maybe you have something over a bowl of rice. That gets a little trickier. But if you can try to save some of the rice towards the end, that is really going to help stunt that blood sugar spike. And so, carbs start there with the starch breakdown. Once it gets to the small intestine, it finishes being broken down. And protein, if you just think about proteins, another macronutrient, they are complex, like chicken, eggs, turkey, beef. Like those are really complex, all the amino acids that your body has to break down. So that starts being broken down into smaller and smaller, polypeptides and things like that. But it's going to take a lot longer.
Yeah.
And then same with if you think about vegetables like cauliflower and, broccoli and asparagus, those are hard to break down too.
Right.
Because of the texture, but also because of the fiber.
Right. But that's interesting because what I'm hearing also is that animal proteins are difficult to break down, but almost in a different way than vegetables. Because vegetables is more about the fiber, but there's not a lot of fiber in animal protein.
No,
like
there's no
zero,
fiber.
right?
No fiber unless it's a plant-based food.
Right.
Now, this all is because fiber, what's so great about fiber and weird is that it goes through us almost fully intact. Even all the way out into our poo. So like
Nature's
some is
broom.
it's sweeping on out. And so sometimes some is broken down into short chain fatty acids, like by the bacteria, the probiotics in our gut, in our colon, or in our gut. Remember, is our colon, our lower intestine, our large intestine.
Not the stomach.
Not the stomach. So when we talk about the gut microbiome, that's referring to really the colon at the bottom.
I think people get that wrong a lot of the time.
It's
When they
confusing.
think about the gut biome, I feel like they're thinking about what's going on in their stomach.
In the gut, yeah. I mean,
But really in our stomach, it's like a combustion chamber, right? Like not a lot of bacteria probably lives. I mean, in the stomach itself, it's like bile and...
Yeah, it's like a lot of things are getting absorbed. There's a lot of vitamins and micronutrients that are getting absorbed, vitamins and minerals. But really, when you get to the colon, the bacteria are hard at work. And that's where there's a lot of magic happening. So that's why it's so important to get probiotics, take a supplement, or get it from foods, which is harder, or eat really good fibrous foods that have prebiotics in them as well. Like the resistant starches and prebiotics are like the food that feed these bacteria. So, you got to do several things, but eating more plants is definitely helpful. And that's why that can help with your colon health.
And probiotics, is that the stuff that's already sort of along its way in the fermentation process, or does that really matter, like how fermented it is? Because I know kimchi and
prebiotics or probiotics?
Probiotics are what I'm thinking of, like our yogurts.
Yeah. The foods that we can.
Kimchi and sauerkraut and
they're ones that have been
pickles.
fermented. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but that's more probiotics or prebiotics?
Probiotics are the bacteria. So those are live.
Okay.
Prebiotics are not live. Probiotics are the live bacteria. So yes, if you buy yogurt, if you buy, tempeh has some kimchi, sauerkraut if it's fresh, kefir, the yogurt drink. So there's not a ton of foods that have probiotics, but they do. Those still have live bacteria in them. And so when they reach your colon, they're helping just magnify the amount of bacteria you have to help break down the fibrous foods you're eating. Prebiotics are certain foods like asparagus and leeks and onion and garlic, things that we cook with a lot, that a lot of people cook with. There's prebiotics that are not live, but they are the foods that these bacteria thrive on.
Okay.
So if you eat more of those, the bacteria thrive because they can feed on that more. And then that just helps the whole cycle.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
So there's a lot happening in the large intestine, but the reason why fiber is so important, and we'll talk about in the order of eating, why it's actually really helpful to eat it first or second, if protein is first, because it remains intact. And so insoluble fiber, there's the two types. There's insoluble fiber and soluble fiber. As a quick little review, insoluble fiber is like providing the structure to the stool and promotes movement. So if you think about like your poop log in the intestines, it's pushing through. It's like helping things move through.
Got it. Okay.
if you want a visual.
Well, it's like the building blocks. It's like the cement for the poop log. Yeah. Right. Kind of holding it together.
Exactly. And it prevents constipation. So insoluble is more the one that helps with constipation. And that's like wheat bran. There's a lot of vegetables. There's a mix, a lot of them have insoluble and soluble. So you don't want to group it all into one category. All fiber is great. But whole grains and things like that can help with the insoluble fiber.
We do a lot of poop analysis at our house. We're still wiping butts.
Yeah.
We're still wiping butts over here.
I like seeing what's going on.
We're categorizing poops on a daily basis. Is this more of a snake poop? Is this more of a log poop? Is this more of a? Yeah. I mean, those
kids are like, and then they're funny because they're like, I still see my carrots in there sometimes, or corn or whatever. I'm like, yeah, sometimes you can see that, but that's because some fibers never ever get broken down. But then you have soluble fiber, which is a gel forming one, and that actually dissolves in water to form like a gel like structure. And so that's more like oats. That's what like can help more with cholesterol levels. It's kind of the old school, like eat your oats or your oatmeal or your Cheerios for cholesterol levels. And then some fruits and beans, but that it does help with cholesterol and it stabilizes blood sugar as well. But both are important.
Yeah, and I think this is where some of this stuff kind of gets lost on people, is that like corn, for instance, is a whole grain, and when you eat corn just by itself, it's gonna pass through and sort of come out looking still like corn, but corn meal or things that are more processed forms of corn are going to get absorbed completely different. They're going to pass through completely different.
They're already broken
they're
down a little bit.
They're already broken down. And so I think people don't understand all the way that like you have a food group and it's great for you, and then you process it a certain way and it's not as good for you anymore.
Yeah.
It's like, you really have to think about all of those complexities around the processing of different things.
Yeah, it's kind of like when we're thinking about that funnel, if you're thinking about having whole fruit versus a smoothie, right? Your body is like breaking it down, that fiber. It's working. It's going all the way, mostly intact, all the way until it gets down to the colon, and then it might still be intact, except the bacteria are at work a little bit. But if you have a smoothie, it's already blended up. And also, if you think about like smoothies can easily be, if we're talking about weight loss, weight management, smoothies, depending on what you add to it, could easily be 200, 250 calories, 300 more. I mean, some of these smoothie places, I'm not going to call them out, but I mean, some of them have 75 grams of sugar in them.
Yeah, and they're adding, I was going to say, and they're adding sugar. Yeah.
And it's like, or some I've seen are 100 grams of sugar.
Or let's just put some honey in there because that's healthy. It comes from bees.
Well, they don't always specify. It's like a fruit syrup. Some has real fruit. And then there's some of the ingredients will say like a fruit syrup or fruit blend. So a lot of added sugar could be there. But anyways, then you're thinking about a smoothie going into your funnel, pouring into your stomach. It's just going to kind of fall through a little bit more easily. And then juice even quicker. So
if anyone's ever actually made their own juice, you see it's like 7 oranges for like a tiny bit. But if you thought about eating 7 oranges, you would never do it. Right. Yeah. But you're going to somehow rationalize that it's okay to have 7 oranges worth of juice.
Yeah, it's a lot for your blood sugar, a lot. I mean, a lot of calories if you really add it up, and maybe not that satisfying. Like maybe a sip or two. Oh, that'd be refreshing in the summer. Like I would love a fresh juice occasionally for a couple sips, but a whole, and those are like $12, $15, these fresh juices that people buy.
All right. So what would be our A+? Give me the A+ sequence of eating. Yeah. So I'm looking at my plate. I have, a little bit of starch. I have a serving of starch. I measured it. I have a bunch of veggies because I can just eat as many of those as I want. I have a big old piece of protein of some sort.
Yeah.
And I have a little side salad. What am I starting with?
Well, it depends. So I'm going to take it back for a second, and it depends on the population and what your goals are. So my previous training was in bariatric patients, post-operative bariatric surgery. Very hard to get enough protein because they had to have protein. They also had to have other nutrients, but protein was like the biggest hitter. Like even liquid protein was hard to get in because their stomachs are so much smaller. Their absorption might be down, but depending on the type of procedure they got. So protein was always first protein. Eat your protein before even your vegetables because they just did not have much room. And it was super important as they're losing weight very quickly.
Wait, can we put our GLP-1 people maybe into this category too?
Yeah, maybe. Because vegetables, and this is where it's like, maybe this is why talking to a professional would be great to know what your diet actually is because you can lose your muscle mass so quickly,
right.
Your hair growth, your skin, your nails, there's your energy. If you don't get your protein in and those amino acids, it can really make a big difference. So,
but not all protein is going to feel the same on your stomach. So like a fattier piece of meat, and that's the thing with the GLP-1 is like they get very full, but also if they start with like a high fat, like they're going to get super full and they don't always feel the best. That's just, I haven't done one obviously, but my experience with my clients that I'm talking to is like, they just, depending on the dosage, but if they're eating something a little bit fattier,
this is where texture comes into play. Yeah. So for bariatric clients and GLP-1, those on GLP-1 medications, maybe if you do protein first, then you do the softer things that are easier to eat, like tuna salad or tuna leaner or meats. Salmon or leaner, chicken that's not too dry and not too heavy. Yeah. Because some of those things can fill them up. But it might be better, depending on how much protein they need and they're not getting, it might be better to start with the protein. Ideally, though, and for the majority of people, fiber, non-starchy vegetables, like leafy green salads, cruciferous vegetables, those would be where you want to start. Yeah. But that can be very filling. So for those other populations, GLP-1s.
Well, this would fall. It seems like these people would be, all right, I want to maximize something we talk about all the time. I want to maximize my insulin sensitivity. Yeah. And so for the people who are looking at it from like a longevity standpoint, from a metabolism standpoint, from a weight loss or body composition standpoint, we're looking at fiber first. And
it coats the small intestine and it just makes everything, it just slows down the gastric emptying, coats the small intestine after the stomach, and just, slows down the absorption of foods.
Because your body's working. And so it's going to still be working like the same amount as we like put some more stuff on there. Now it's all blending together.
Now that doesn't say, protein still slows down digestion as well. Protein is a lot slower in absorption than carbohydrates, but about 50 to 58% of it still turns into glucose. So it is going to, go a little bit faster than like fat would. But I think either are better than starting with a carb, right? Like either of those things are better for the majority of the population. Fiber would be best to start with.
How much fiber is in a head of romaine lettuce? But that also is a good thing to note because 1.5 grams of fiber is is in a head of romaine lettuce. Yeah. But that's a good thing to note is that, okay, you may be starting with a salad, but if your salad dressing has a lot of sugar added to it, boom, we're like kind of back in that right.
Or if you're drinking a sweet tea with your meal, maybe, So there's things to think about. But it's all grouped together. So the sugary stuff, whatever it is, should be at the end. Right. If possible. Right. Fiber first, and then proteins, and then bottom or last would be your carbohydrates, your rice, your pasta, your breads, your fruits even. And that's kind of a nice thing to end on because it's sweeter. Yeah. And so it's a nice thing to end the meal on. But that would be ideal. Also, if you're thinking about if you are a volume eater or you want to lose weight and you have trouble with portions. Okay. Your vegetables and your salad are
I felt like you looked at me like a little bit more when you said volume eater. Like,
well, no, if you eat a ton of
food, then
I can't. I feel like I have to eat smaller meals throughout the day. But a lot of people are volume eaters, and that gets them into trouble if they're starting with the high calorie dense breads and like sandwiches, and then chips or pretzels or whatever it is. That's going to get you into trouble. So if you're a volume eater specifically, definitely get on the fiber first, salad, vegetables, whatever, raw vegetables, and then your proteins, and maybe that has some fats with it, and then your carbs last. That's the ideal order. And those are the reasons why. For volume, we tend to live in excess in the United States, or always want more, always want bigger portions. We're served a lot. So if you go to a restaurant and use these tactics, that can make a big difference in your calories too. You could save half your meal and have it another day instead of eating it all or eating most.
Now, y'all, this also matters too if you are like some people that I know who, while they're making dinner, go into the fridge and find some dips and want something to dip in there.
Yeah.
But that's also a great time
do the veggies.
Do the veggies.
Yeah.
Like hit your veggies.
I've gotten way better about that.
Yeah.
I think I used to do that way more coming home from my other job too, and being and when the kids were like babies, I would just like mindlessly like snack. And it's like the stress. I'm like going over my day. I'm like ruminating over the day and eating mindlessly.
How many Triscuits are in a serving?
I mean, like six, and it's 120 calories. That goes very quick. I mean, that's, and then it doesn't.
I can eat really 3 Triscuits in just like a stack, just like one. Yeah. I mean,
boom, 60 calories. So anyways, so,
get your veggies.
And I know a lot of people, and we do it too sometimes, and the kids are better about not snacking before dinner, I think, because we're so busy in the evenings now. But a lot of people will serve their kids a platter of veggies before dinner, or just leave it out and don't say a word. That's a great tip for kids who are always in the cabinets or the pantry, like while you're cooking dinner, and then they don't want to eat dinner, because if you just leave out the raw veggies and it's there, they will gravitate to it, eat it. It gets their fiber. It may not fill them up too much depending on what it is, but at least, they got some vegetables in too.
There are some great dips out there too that aren't like hammering the calories. I know that.
Like the
what
Greek
is the one
yogurt
that
dip.
The Greek yogurt dips?
Yeah, like the Greek yogurt ones.
Spinach and artichoke.
Yeah,
Greek
but there's
yogurt.
a lot of them. There's cottage cheese dips. There's Greek yogurt dips. Even like the black bean dips and hummus. I mean, those can add up, but those are better, and they've got some fiber in them and some fat. So yeah, but still, you don't want to hammer the dips before dinner if possible. So thinking about that order of eating funnel structure. So this is going to help improve, blood sugar response. It also just allows you to get in your protein and your fiber, which are the two nutrients we talk about the most, I would say, that most people are lacking. So if you front load those and have those at the beginning of the meal, just like we talk about that, front loading them at breakfast or in the beginning of the day, front load them at the meal too, so that you make sure you get them. And then you can have your starch or your bread or whatever, but then you'll have less room for that higher calorie, higher carb stuff that you probably don't need. Okay. So another great thing, I'm just going to highlight another great thing about fiber rich foods, not forgetting them, having them at the beginning of the meal or second, if you need to do the protein first, is that when they do get fermented by bacteria, one of the byproducts is in the colon, it makes short chain fatty acids from breaking down the fiber. And so what that is, have you heard of that? I think we've talked about that before.
Isn't that protein sort of short chain
fatty acids do a lot of different things in the body. So they're produced from
amino acids.
Different from amino acids from protein. But short chain fatty acid, there's a lot of health benefits to those, and they can be made in the colon by different foods that you eat. But they act as signaling molecules. They can actually cross the blood-brain barrier and use a signal through the vagus nerve, which could help with mood, neuroprotection, mental health. They can also suppress cytokines, the pro-inflammatory cytokines.
Right, that's what I
always talk about.
That's where my mind went, is anti-inflammatory.
They do, yeah. So they can be anti-inflammatory. They do a lot of different things. They also, which is interesting, this brings us full circle to the GLP-1s. They also trigger the release of hormones like GLP-1. And so it could help if you're getting enough fiber, which is, intact. It helps with volume. It helps with feeling full. It helps with preventing constipation. It helps with the cholesterol levels. That's going all the way to the colon, and some of that is breaking down into short chain fatty acids that can help promote GLP-1, which is going to help with appetite, which is going to help with, regulating if you have trouble with eating too much or you want to lose weight because you're eating too many calories. And then it helps with blood sugar as well.
Give me your top 5, and you could like kind of lump in a couple, if you want to put like asparagus and broccoli together, but give me your like top 5 fiber rich,
Fibrous, FIBROUS would be the top most
hooked on
fibrous.
Phonics worked for me. Give me your top 5 most fiber dense foods.
Okay, top 5. It depends on the portion, obviously.
Okay.
But I would say, because there's charts all over the place. Like a half a cup of this is 9 grams.
Well, obviously, like if you're gonna like have like a quarter cup of chia seeds or something, that's probably
yeah.
But we're talking about like things that
People
are
would eat.
Yeah, exactly.
And not like choke on. So I would say this is not in specific order, but like lentils.
Okay.
Are pretty high. I believe they're about 9 grams per half a cup.
That tastes like it.
All the which is also going to fill you up.
Yep,
volume.
yep.
Now beans are all high in fiber, but I wouldn't have those first at the beginning of the meal.
Right.
They are carbohydrates.
Yeah.
They are fiber. They are more of your fiber. But when we talk about eating fiber at the beginning of the meal, it's more of the salads, the cruciferous vegetables, the non-starchy vegetables. But lentils and beans are just up there. I mean, beans in general are really high in fiber. Even a half a cup, a whole cup can make put a big divot in your day. And remember, technically it's females need 25 grams of fiber a day in general. Males need 38 grams, but we're finding we really need more like 30.
Can we just say, like 35 for each person?
I think, children and adults, like women, especially when we get into perimenopause age, at least 30 grams a day. And that's hard to get.
Yeah.
I mean, if you actually add up the amount of fiber, but if you're doing beans, if you're doing avocado is a great fiber source, which is sneaky.
I once heard an avocado has the equivalent of 4 slices of whole wheat bread, the same amount of fiber.
It could be. I don't know off the top of my head how much fiber it has, but it is like, think about when you cut it, it's got the strings, kind of like sweet potato, but it's higher than sweet potato in fiber. But it's got like little strings. So those are the fibers. But what's weird is it's a fat too. So you wouldn't think it would be high in fiber, but that has some good fiber in it. Beans, lentils.
Gosh, is there anything else like an avocado? Like
so unique.
What is up with that?
Maybe into a dip.
Like an artichoke. Is that kind of similar?
Artichokes are pretty high in fiber.
Okay.
Yeah, we should add more of those into our cooking. I do like artichokes.
So much work, right? Like you have to
Well,
peel
you get the jarred ones, but those aren't going to be, those aren't going to be as good. And then I'm trying to think for their fiber sources, what would be my top?
Well, it's got to be like, isn't cauliflower and...
Yeah, the cruciferous vegetables.
Yeah.
But I would say berries are a great source for what you get. Like calorie-wise, they're lower sugar, higher fiber fruits. So that's one of the best fruits you can have, berries or cherries. And they get you a good amount of fiber. So if you had like a cup of raspberries on your yogurt or something, that's going to get you a decent amount of fiber in comparison to other fruits. Maybe pear and apple also have some good fiber. But things like, the melon or bananas or things like that may not have quite as much fiber. However, you know how green bananas have more resistant starch? Have you heard about that? Instead of the more ripe bananas, it's actually better for your blood sugar.
Well, do not like a ripe banana.
Well, you don't like bananas in general.
Well, but if that banana has one brown spot on it and I peel it and it's got that mush fat,
Yeah.
That and avocados. I need those to be firm.
Yeah.
They need to be.
You're so picky about that stuff. But anyways, just like cut it off.
Okay.
But the green bananas have more resistant starch in them.
Okay.
And so kind of like if you've heard, like when you cook pasta and rice, you cook it, then you cool it and then have it cool. It has more resistant starch in it, which can actually impact your blood sugar. And it can actually, this would be a good experiment with our CGMs. If it makes a difference in our blood sugar spike, if you have like a cooked and cooled rice with a dish versus like, right after you cooked it.
Interesting.
But that has more resistant starch, which often promotes butyrate production, which is a short chain fatty acid.
Okay.
And also like lentils, chickpeas, black beans, those have butyrate in them as well. But green bananas have more of that resistant starch, which can help turn into, that bacteria, break it down into short chain fatty acids. So anyways, if you have a super ripe banana, some people like them super ripe and they're sweeter. You can just kind of taste that sweetness. They also don't have as much resistant starch in them at that time. And they're going to shoot your blood sugar
I
up.
want the chalky banana.
That's like green.
Yeah.
Yeah. Before it has any brown spots on it. So yeah. And then, fruits in general, like another reason to not hate on our fruit friends or be scared of fruit is they have pectin in them, which can help also yield short chain fatty acids. Pectin is that powder that we make jam with. It thickens it. So that's taken from fruits.
So if we were to put our all-star lineup plate together because I guess with the protein's going to be either animal, but I guess if you did like tempeh or something, then you'd have even more protein, right?
Yeah.
So we got broccoli, some cruciferous vegetable. That's like broccoli, asparagus, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts. Are those cruciferous?
Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So something like that. And then we have our beans or lentils as our starch. And then we have our protein. And then we finish it off with like a couple blackberries, raspberries.
Yes.
I mean, that would
and maybe salmon is your protein.
Yeah.
Got your omega-3 fatty acids. That'd be
a good one.
That'd be a great meal. Yeah. Finish off. I mean, yeah, berries are great. If you force yourself, this is like where the behavior comes in, right? Like the, things I talk to clients about, like if you can just have the berries readily available in your fridge and you're having a sweet craving, for those who really like something sweet at the end of every meal, if you just have them available and you get in the habit or maybe force yourself once to open the fridge and actually eat a few raspberries or blackberries, that sweetness usually satisfies you. And then it makes that craving go away. So fruits are like that, and that could be a really good end to the meal.
Just putting them on your plate too.
There's
or have
something
satisfying about just like seeing, because I can eat some berries. I can eat an entire
Put some little cocoa nibs on top, or have it over some Greek yogurt, and that'll give you a little bit more probiotics. That
sounds good.
But as like a little dessert or a snack, an afternoon snack, a little pick-me-up. People like sweet stuff in the afternoon. Maybe you do a yogurt bowl, Greek yogurt with your berries, a little cocoa nibs or a little cinnamon or a little, there's all sorts of stuff. Flaxseed, chia seeds, you could add all sorts of stuff. Maybe some of that seed granola that's not high in sugar. That's just like seeds or slivered almonds or something like that. Give a little crunch, crushed walnuts. So that's a great like sweet kind of snack to have in the afternoon that would really help your gut health, but also get you protein and fiber. But yeah, the cruciferous vegetables is the more you can have those, the better. And they also are loaded with prebiotics, which help feed that bacteria in the gut. So, and they're just like bulky, right? So they're going to fill you up and you can have a lot of it for low calories.
So start with fiber, hammer the protein, put the carbs on top.
Yeah. And sprinkle fat throughout. You're going to have fat throughout the meal. So that's not talked about quite as much with the order of eating. You just don't want to have that fat first.
Yeah.
Like you don't want to go into dinner having had 2 tablespoons of peanut butter right before. Right. That's going to fill you up a little bit.
And I think that this also kind of ties into wanting to reverse engineer this for performance. So if you know you're going to a workout, do not,
Do not have a lot of fiber.
Try to stay away from the fats.
Do not have a lot of fat.
Check the fats. Try not to have a lot of fiber. You want things that are going to be absorbed quickly, especially within that like 30-minute window prior to working out. We have so many clients who like come and they've fasted or they had a protein shake or something before they work out and they are just dragging.
Yeah.
So you got to, give yourself a little bit of energy and just know also too, from a metabolism standpoint that if you increase your blood glucose right before a workout, then what's primarily going to happen is your muscles are just going to start consuming that as soon as you start moving. So you don't have to worry so much about, hampering your metabolism that day, having it in really close proximity. I mean, I will literally be warming up and I'll like after I warm up, I'll pound an orange and then Yeah. I'm like,
because it's
yeah,
digested
fire.
so quick.
Yeah,
It's just
ready
like
to go.
it's giving you that glucose. It's giving you that energy right there.
Yeah.
And yeah, so like everything, these are general recommendations. Of course, talking to a dietitian, about your performance, about your going into workouts, post workout, the timing makes a difference. This is for general meals, but yes, you wouldn't want to do this right before a workout. If you think about snacks as mini meals, that's a healthier way to view snacks, because otherwise we try to think about like the process. What can I have? Like chips, pretzels, those are snacks. Crackers, those are snacks. But thinking about this guideline as for your snacks as well. So like I wouldn't go into a snack and have a ton of fruit first and then something, or a ton of crackers and then my cheese stick. So maybe have like, your veggies and your cheese stick. Or
I'm just thinking about the bag of nuts and how many nut servings of nuts I can eat, and just hand, So what would be better is to get some veggies.
Yeah.
Start with that and then portion out some nuts.
Yeah.
So.
And it slows you down for sure. So another takeaway from this is next time you do go out to a restaurant, think about this as well. And what we sometimes do is like split a salad to start with.
You're seeing though a lot of restaurants on their appetizers
now have a salad.
They definitely have a salad, but a lot of them are now doing like the small plate Brussels sprouts or broccoli or something like, right? Aren't you seeing that? I feel like we've seen that recently.
But they're like loaded with stuff that's yummy. Yeah. That makes it very yummy.
True.
So yeah, while it is fiber,
pancetta.
Or it's like, a bourbon maple glazed Brussels sprouts with, some sort of cheese. But I mean, yes, that's giving you some fiber. That's giving you some vegetables. Is that the most like calorically friendly way to do it? Probably not. But if you can do like a salad, a house salad,
save the going out. Don't try to just enjoy going out, and just don't do it that frequently,
Yeah. But do the veggies first when you can, or a salad first. And that will help you. If you're like, I got to just end with this. You have always been one to be kind of like scared you're not going to get enough food at restaurants.
You mean like my caveman mentality?
Yeah, just like you're like
my scarcity.
I'm going to get my own. I'm like, don't you want to split one? You're like, you've gotten better, but you're like, I want to get my own entree. I'm like, this is going to be so much food. Now, you've gotten better because we've done more of the tapa style. You were against those to begin with. You were like, what are all these small plates? But I'm saying when you do go out and you're someone like that, it can be super helpful to like start with splitting a salad. Mm-hmm. Now the server may not be as happy, or the restaurant,
right? But
like split a salad to start, see how that goes, and maybe you can order an appetizer or split an entree. Often that's enough.
You're right. You're right. You're always